and welcome to the 1%ers Performance Podcast, coming to you from Combermary and Gadigal country in Australia. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we acknowledge the First Nations people of these lands. This is the podcast exploring how small changes make a big impact. I'm Mario Buchs, and together with my co-host Tim Buxton, we'll discover the unseen edges of peak performance to help athletes, teams and leaders unlock their exponential growth. And now, it's time to dive in and find the 1% that changes everything. To all our listeners, so this is probably the first time since we've come back from Iraq that we'll kind of have a bit of time to talk about it because life goes on, of course. Yeah, look, I came back a little bit earlier than you. I had to head back to get into the next training phase, really, and just general stuff that was going on at home, just normal stuff. As much as I envied the fact that some people might be lying around at a pool now and sipping on some nice cold drinks, but no, I had to be very realistic with myself, saying, okay, this was fantastic from a personal perspective to do what we did. It was also good training for me, of course, in many aspects, but now I'm in full-blown mode mentally. So the reason I kind of also wanted to get back is that I don't get into any break in terms of training for coast to coast in my case now, because that's a distance I have to take really serious, the event and everything. I also had a bit of time just to sit in a dark place. It was good. Things have to sink in, don't they? Really. You can't just carry on as if nothing happened. For me, it was just a mind-blowing experience, meeting all those people and having all those people on board, and everybody had their own agenda in a good way, right? You know?
Yeah.
But we all chipped in and everybody was tired, huh? There was no life of luxuries over there, which was what we wanted. You know, we shared rooms and we were on top of one another pretty much 24/7, literally. And it was good. And everybody chipped in with their time and nobody stood still until everything was pretty much done. For then we said, okay, now is time we all, sit down, rest, go to bed or whatever. And that was amazing without anybody actually leading that kind of. And that's what amazed me the most. But there was no sergeant major there. There was some idiot boogieing around every day, but that's a different story. Like I wanted to boogie and rock and roll all day. But other than that, there was no real kind of sergeant major saying, okay, this is what we do now. This is what we're going to do in an hour. It was just, this has to be done. Trucks have to be offloaded. We need to go back to the shop, get drinks. People put their hands up. Yeah, my turn. Bananas, oranges, whatever we needed for the next day. Just the simple things, but they have to be done. It's like emptying a dishwasher. It's a simple thing, but you can watch people not doing it. It's kind of, or you get, people step in. It's the same thing. It's simple. The simple things are the ones that get us to the finish line in any aspect and get us back to the start line in the morning, which is what we needed,
Yeah. I love I love the way you kind of describe the team element of this experience. And I think that was important to highlight. Like everyone, we were a unique group of people, of filmmakers, of journalists, of athletes, of humanitarians, whatever, of young kids. Charlie being just a young now 13-year-old teenager. But I would say you were kind of like the drummer. The metronome, the keeping the beat, keeping the team moving, keeping that that reminded it, hey, look, there's a pace, we don't have to go too fast, we don't have to go too slow, we just have to wind things back and back, focus back in on the essentials again. But everyone around that really contributed such a beautiful part to what was such a phenomenal team effort. And if I think back to to the experience. Like you said, was sleeping on top of each other in hotel rooms. We there wasn't a lot of private space, yet there was such a mutual respect for each person and everybody. There was no he's the superstar. There was everyone knew that they had a really important role to contribute, and I think that put everyone on this wonderful equal level playing ground. And I think that that was so key to the success of that. And I think you can kind of relate this to any team or crewing team that you're trying to pull together, the importance of having that kind of environment. And this is in work, in all kinds of things, is how do you cultivate that that kind of teamwork atmosphere? Because it takes everybody dialed in that selfless way for it to be a success. And it's probably one of my biggest takeaways. Look, there was times where I know I personally needed every single one of those persons on a personal level to help me to get through each day. And I think everyone could say that about everyone on the trip, that we all kind of needed each other at different times. So how did you find, was there any stories? Is there any instance or particular thing that happened that kind of you look back on from our team dynamics there?
I think obviously what you said just now, that I just want to elaborate a little bit more on this. This is what you and I are about, right? For people who listen in, this whole team atmosphere. Sometimes you don't have to say too much. You just have to lead from the front. As much as this was your return, Tim, and this has to go out there in the stratosphere, I never got the feeling that you made out that you are in any way, shape, or form, even 0.001% worth more than anyone else on this team. So this has to be said. Now that's leadership quality 101, right? And nobody understands this unless you can feel it. You entered the room, things were in control, but you never had to say, look, and that's I'm just saying, people listening to the 1%ers Performance Podcast, this is what teamwork is all about. You can write the best plan, you can have the best training modalities, you can have the best environment, the more luxurious, the better, blah, 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 blah. If you do not have that team environment, even in the smallest coffee shop around the corner with 5 employees, you will never ever make the best coffee and make the happiest or create the happiest atmosphere for customers to come back and pay even $1 more for your coffee because it's well worth coming. So I just need to put that out there. For me, looking through the hundreds of pictures that Matt took and kindly enough shared with us, for me, the moment of day one, 31 Ks in, you're sitting on the ground. I have an ambulance guy tapping on my shoulder. I'm bending over, right? I've got hey man translating from the ambulance to me what's been said. We've got another Iraqi Ishan, who's top bloke, helping out as well. Nobody understanding what's going on with you. I had an idea what could have gone wrong, so I tried to. And then we also have Kit filming this. So that picture for me is just the master picture of it all, where you say, how did we. Not all the team is in this picture, unfortunately, but we've got a few players in there. And then what next? And nobody knowing what's next, right? So there's a risk we had to take and say, okay, let's continue on, get you in the shade, point one, get you in that park, which we needed to be, to then finish the run for day one. Option two was to go to the hotel and come back out, but that wasn't an option because that means our rest time from finishing the run up to the Citadel to the next morning's run again, which we knew was going to be the hottest
Yeah.
day, was kind of a no-brainer for me. That's not going to happen. We need to finish now. But just going back to the ambulance guy, he was tapping on my shoulders, telling me how soon he needs you to go to the emergency, right? And yeah, people don't understand ultra running will say, we're stupid. Why didn't we? That's true. I mean, if you don't understand, that's fine. That's just like, that's normal. That's okay. And I would never argue with someone like that. Because I used to be like that, where I was watching people suffer and why are they not stopping? But it wasn't about stopping. And, all you did was throw up. right? You vomited your, I don't know if we should mention what you threw up. I know the color, and I soon clicked what it was. It definitely wasn't Powerade Blue, let's put it that way, which
Yeah.
I thought you were having all day. So, yeah, I think that was the most powerful moment, because that's what made the trip say, okay, this is more. We will suffer. And I'm also thinking about the whole process of how we try to plan everything. You can't plan for that moment.
No.
You can only troubleshoot, and that's what we did. And we did a fantastic job as a team. Nobody said, oh, let's stop. Nothing. There was not even the vibe of anybody saying, let's stop at that moment. But people were a little bit unsure what was next, So we had to just kind of together had a quick chat, you and I. We said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Obviously, you wandered off on the four-way motorway, which was a little bit on the gnarly side, but that's okay. We saw, but people know
I saw that there was a park couple of kilometers away, and I just beelined for that park. That park I knew had shade in it. Yeah, I'm that. I mean, bringing me back to that, I think that was the crucial point of the whole experience. What happened? What was decided? And I was pretty. I was, let's say, I was in the throes of heat stroke and full dehydration because I had now thrown everything up. I had pooped everything twice. I was couldn't keep anything in and so dizzy, like just really lightheaded that and the heat was still pouring down. I mean, the only shade I could try and find was in the shade of the side of the car that the sun wasn't beating down on. So you're still feeling the heat bounce off the road up onto you. And that's, again, I think it was the one thing that we talked a lot about was the heat, but it was the one thing well, I believe I still underestimated. And if I had put a lot more time and energy focusing on just addressing the heat thing rather than maybe some of the bells and whistles and frills around, supplements and this and that and other things, then maybe we would have avoided this. But look, we couldn't, these are things you can't, it wasn't like we went in unprepared or without a respect for the heat. It was just, we were just greeted with what we didn't knew we were going to get, but didn't realize how brutal it would be. I was gone for all money, nosediving, and I can look to a few things that got me through. I think knowing you were there to just fend off all the questions and all the this is what you need to do really helped because I just needed to just keep moving. I knew when I got whisper that they want to take me to the hospital, I would just stand up and I would, I think if Charlie was with me or someone was with me at the time, we just trot along down the road just to kind of let everyone know, no, I can move. I can move. I'm just trying to figure out how do I get out of this nose spiral because it just running in the blazing heat didn't seem to be the wisest thing. But getting I think but standing still wasn't gonna be wise either. So it was a really crazy point in the run. And even when we got into the park, right? So we made the strategy, let's go as quick as possible to the park. We'll do a bit more kind of time running around in the park where there's shaded areas. But the minute I got into the park, my whole body started cramping all over the place because we lied down in the shade and my body just went nuts. So there was a
especially your
lot of
calves.
yeah, there was a lot going on.
And then yeah. The only worry I had there, everything else I had a solution for. I was very confident. Now hindsight is great, isn't it? But no, I have to be honest. I had a solution to everything. Cramping on the outer level of your abdominals. That's the
Yeah.
only worry I had. Right? That you have stomach cramps is clear. You drank something that wasn't going well, and a few other bits and pieces. And as you throw up, obviously the stomach is working overtime, downwards, upwards,
Yes.
and so on. But those cramps
On the chest
on the
all the way
chest
down
and
to
all
my
the way down, that was
external
the
stomach. Yeah.
It's the only thing I had to just start thinking a little bit. What can we do here? But everything else we kind of control. That's just what happens when the body shuts down in a way and saying, mate, enough is enough, you know. But we also had to overturn this in a way, telling the body we're not done. You know, mind over matter. We've still got 3 marathons to run. We had another 11 Ks, 11 and a half Ks to go from that point. And that's a long way, you know. Let's not underestimate 12 Ks or 11 Ks. That's all people run normally, you know, or many people, that's a long run. And we were nowhere near anywhere where we wanted to say this is it. Came round and yeah, yeah, but yeah, you're right. In a situation like that, it's like a small group of people need to make the right decisions because everybody's trying to help and has an opinion and thinks whatever. But you're quite right. I mean, as soon as you heard the word hospital in Kurdish or
Yeah.
Iraqi, I don't know what language was spoken at the moment, because for me, both are still foreign, of course. You actually jumped up. You did probably one of your best squats in your life. The
Yeah.
guys at Humble Gym would be proud. And I'm like, if this guy's not done yet with that kind of squat, we just need to cool the guy down and then we're good to go. That actually showed me that it's all up here, right? It's 9.5 centimeters between your ears. Someone says, we're going to hospital. You're definitely not going to hospital. You jumped up and says, yeah,
You know, can I share it too? Another thing that kept me going was, remember I was telling you I've got this appointment to interview with somebody at, I think it was like 1:30 or something like that. And everything failed on me. So I my watch didn't charge overnight, so I didn't have my watch, and I never actually end up using my Garmin watch for the rest of the run. It just never. There was a problem with my charging cord, which I didn't figure out until the final day. It'll log on saying it's charging, and then just disconnect a few seconds later, which I didn't notice. I never had my phone on me. I gave it to one of the guys in the back of the truck. I was like, here, when I didn't need to use it, I was like, can you have it? So a lot of these things that kind of kept me connected. And so I'm like, I need to find out what I needed to find out what time it was, when we would finish. I was thinking, there's this one guy who's this young man whose family fled Shingal Mountain. They escaped a genocide in the middle of summer, not on the shoulder of summer, in the middle of summer. Families and their relatives went up the mountain, where there was no shelter, no shade, where conditions were much worse, without food and water. And needing to get back and get done in time for him kept me just like, we got to keep moving. There was no other alternative to not just trying to get this thing done. And even when we got into the park and my muscles were pulling at me in excruciating pain, having my son there just hold my hand and even make a joke as we started walking. It's not going to be a walk in the park, as we're literally walking in the park. Those little moments, like you said, got became the why. And I remember very vividly you said, this, Tim, now is when the why comes in. And we talk about the stages of a project, or the stages of a run. In the start, it's about, what do we talk about? It's the
it's more a motivational thing, you know,
motivation, right? Yeah.
emotional.
Everyone's motivated to just get started and going, right? There's a drive, and then it goes into that drive, that maintenance mode, rad mode we talk about. But the final part that we needed to finish this thing was the why. And you said, Tim, this is where your why is going to have to really come in strong. And holding my son's hand, thinking of my family, how much I love them, thinking of, I've got to meet this guy, Shalan, who is a hero of mine, who at 14 years old, after we took their family into a camp, ended up leaving to go, being sent by his family across the Turkish border, smuggled across the border, jumped on a boat twice to get to Greece, because the first time the boat got turned back, and then finally making it to the Holland, to the Netherlands, where he's now a doctor and has helped his whole family immigrate to Holland to be with him over there. A young kid did that, and I knew I could not miss this meeting. And those little whys, um, you know, um, gave me They really didn't. Like, if I didn't have them, I'm pretty sure my body would have overridden any other logical attempt to try and finish that thing. I would have been carted off to the hospital in that ambulance, and it would have been, who knows if we're even going to get back on day two.
That was my fear as well. Once you're there, it's kind of, yeah, it gets a little bit comfortable. No, the whys are very important. Yeah, I speak to my runners about that all the time. We spoke about this whole motivation. And this is something people also need to understand. They're now saying, okay, what's harder? Running 169 kilometers in one hit or running 4 marathons in 4 days? What's harder? At the end of the day, you only have to start once. You only have rad mode, the middle bit, um, once if you run it in one hit, and you're only kind of got that little drive to the finish line only once. We had to start all over every single morning, different terrain, different situation, new police, new ambulance. None of them knew what they were doing. I mean,
Mm.
the Kurdish news said, this is not what we're used to, people running in whatever, however we look like in our gear on the side of a motorway. That's not what they used to do. So I think, to be quite honest, to put that in relative terms, it was quite hard to start again every single morning, get up again every single morning, get people not motivated, but kind of, we needed to start the sooner the better because it got warm.
Yeah, I mean, every minute you were out there past 10 o'clock, you were counting, and you knew, like let's get this done by 11, or let's get this done by, like, we needed to be on the final stretch. So you're right. Like, and it was, like you said, new territory, new terrain. I think one of the things we did well was we tweaked our strategy every day. We spent time analyzing what didn't go right, what we needed to improve on. Like you said, by the end, we took people that had never crewed. My son was one of the main crew members, 12 years old at the time, in the back of a pickup, getting ready and approaching each aid station, making sure things were ready to go. We had Troy who was jumping off the back of the truck mid runs, running things back and forth to us. Like,
With a
it was
dodgy stomach for
with a
about
dodgy stomach.
36, 48 hours as well. Like a
Yeah,
very dodgy stomach.
it
He
was
wasn't
almost
well.
comic relief for us to see him jumping off the truck. We're running, feeling like absolute crap. He's jumping off the truck, running up a hill as far as he can, squatting, doing a massive bog, his stomach, or throwing up because he's like can't keep anything in, and then jumping back on the truck. And then, I mean, there was just so many moments, right, that I think spoke to the everyone had it tough. No one rested, no one chilled, no one, was a passenger on the bus, mate. Everybody was, and as frustrated as we could get sometimes, like, where's the film crew? Where's this? They were out there making sure someone was getting, the police guys were getting food because they were getting all antsy because they wanted to eat, and doing multiple different things, going to get extra water because we ran out of water and we didn't have enough, or couldn't fit it on the truck.
Tap water is a no-no in Iraq, people. So everything had to be bottled.
Yeah,
And in the middle of diddly squat, some days you could only see a Syrian outpost that's about 3,500 years old, and that doesn't have a shop inside now. It's still a Syrian outpost, or it's a historical
exactly.
site, and that's all you have. So sometimes it's an hour one way to get water and ice and oranges and bananas, because when it's really hot, we use the water also to cool ourselves down, not just to drink.
I mean, the melted ice water that was in the eskies, they would refill that empty bottles of water with that, and we just use that to throw over us. But we had to make sure we weren't drinking that one. But I mean, there were so many, little things that you had to stay on top of. And like you said, no one. It was all new terrain. Every step was. We didn't know I didn't even know how long was the end of this tunnel. Was there gonna, like, were we gonna be
2.4 kilometers, that tunnel.
Yeah,
It's
and we
told at
had
the
to
beginning.
figure out, like, were we gonna step into a drain that didn't have a cover on it, like, halfway through that tunnel, and the fumes of the cars and dead dogs on the side of the inside the tunnel, and not to be mentioned, I think the main reason we had the police escort and ambulance was so we wouldn't be roadkill from either the wild dogs in the morning or the trucks hurtling past and coming on the inside of you without any notice.
I mean, as much as we live in a country where, cars don't really take much notice of us when we run on the side of the road. You can just 12 times worse in Iraq and Kurdistan, where they have other problems than watching out for runners or cyclists or whatever on the side of the road. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Dogs in the beginning of the run, coming out of the towns, who thought we were prey, Which is, yeah, that, I mean, as much as I know about dogs in many countries I run, and I've been chased by many dogs, luckily I've never been bitten. The problem is, once you get bitten, you have only a short time to get to hospital because rabies is serious.
Yeah.
That's one thing, they're not going to bite your leg off, but one little bite can cause some harm. And there's our adventure gone, right? So you're right. The police and the ambulance were there to definitely make sure they stay steered clear from us and understood that we're not prey. We're here on an odyssey. We had our own purpose.
Thanks for tuning in to the One Percenters podcast. That's a wrap for another episode. And we're proud to be recording from Australia on Kombumerri and Gadigal country. And we honour the traditions and knowledge of the First Nations people and pay our respects to elders, past and present. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. We want to hear from you, the questions or topics you would like us to cover, and you can easily do that in the Spotify app. And for those of you that are ready to discover your peak performance edge today, just head on over to our website. That is top.coach. That's TOPP.coach. And start unlocking your unlimited potential with us today. We would love to work with you. And that's it for now. Until next time, what are you waiting for?